Good morning, everyone. This is John Craig, and you are joining us here together on the Let Us Reason Together show here on February the 18th in the year 19 is 2019, 1999.
We got an echo.
So, and we got an echo, so I'm going to have to change the setting. Y'all bear with me. I had to change a computer. So now we've got an echo in there, and I have to figure out where that echo is coming from. So bear with me for just a second. So y'all go ahead and talk real quick. And as we get ready for the show, y'all fill for me, please.
We're supposed to rather not tap dance, as they say on the air, but speak forth. I'm just momentarily admiring that logo you have, JR. It's just such a emblematic statement of the times in which you're living. Restoration. Hang on just a second. I'm going to take this call and tell them not to call again. Delaware Nation. We're an Indian company here. Just a second. Let me take this out. Restoration. Hang on just a second. I'm going to take this call and tell them not to call again. Delaware Nation. We're an Indian company here. Just a second.
We may have to restart this.
Okay. Is my echo gone now?
Your echo's gone.
It's gone.
Okay. It's gone.
Yay. All right. So we're good to go. Well, thank you all for sticking with us here. This is Let Us Reason Together show, and it is still February the 18th. It did not take us an extra day to get it together, and I believe it is the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar 1 in the Hebrew year 5779. And this show is based off of Isaiah 118, which says, "Come now and let us reason together," says Yahweh, "though your sins are as scarlet, they will be as white as snow, though they are red like crimson, they will be like wool." And the echo is back. All right. So we'll figure out why.
Double recording.
All right. How's that? Is that any
Well,
better?
it's not an echo. It's like it's just repeating everything you're saying a couple seconds later.
Oh. Okay. Let's see if we can
Not an echo. It's like it's just repeating everything you're saying a couple seconds later.
Yeah, there we go. I hear what you're saying there. Let's just try to do something else here.
It's just repeating everything you're saying a couple seconds later.
There we go. I hear what you're saying there. All right. So how about that? Are we getting any?
All right.
Okay. Is that any better?
I think we're okay.
We're okay now?
You're somewhat faint, John, but it's clear.
Okay. Well, I just unhooked one microphone, and so I'm using the computer's microphone instead of my nice one. So, but if that's better, then we'll go there.
Better.
Okay. All right. So that's
still
good.
Doing it now.
Okay. How's that sound? Do you hear any type of echo going on? Y'all, this is live radio, and again, I apologize. We've got a great show for you all this morning, by the way, and you want to stick with us because we've got some golden cows all over the place that we've got to be talking about. You do not want to miss this show. So what do y'all think now? Are we good?
Do they want to hook up to Sandy's computer?
There's Sandy.
All right. So let's go on with this then. So what is today? Well, first off, talk about Let Us Reason Together. Now that I'm really off my cadence, but hey, it's where we sit down, reason out current events, cultural shifts, and of course this week's Torah portion. We can either push back or push through. Nevertheless, if iron does not sharpen iron, sparks will never fly, let alone ever get a fire going. And with a little heat and a good Midrash, how will our hearts ever get soft and moldable enough to be transformed in the way that the Spirit, the Ruach, wants us to be? Okay. Do we still have a little bit of echo going on or repeat? I guess there is. That is.
It's almost like you have another channel on.
It's like
you have it on one of your other things.
It's like it's looping, right?
It's on, and you don't have it pulled. You're not listening. Go. I know. Go. Make that small. Okay, and go right here. Let's close that.
Okay.
And
all right, maybe that's because it was picking up the other sound, the other side.
I don't know.
Maybe so. Well, let's keep going then. And so, what is today? Today is, we always got to start out in terms of what type of day this is, what's being celebrated in these weird calendar days. Well, this is one of them, Meyers Day. Meyers Day. It is also Random Hugs Day. Are you guys a hugger? Do we do random hugs? Maybe we can do random hugs at different times of the day. Give somebody a hug. Well, I think that's always good. And that is if there's not this close personal space issue that people have a problem with. But hugs are good. It's also Strict Wife Day. Strict Wife Day. I'm not going to even talk about that. How about Stupid Excuses Day? I think us guys are sometimes really good. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I can really come up with stupid excuses, but I'm not going to dwell on that either. It's Morning Coffee in Bed Day. I didn't get morning coffee in bed.
I've never made you coffee in all the years of our marriage. Sorry.
Oh yeah. How about this? This is what we're going to talk about. I thought this is very appropriate considering the Torah portion this week. Cow milked while flying in an airplane day. Yep, it's also Drink Wine Day, and it's National Battery Day. And some things that are also being celebrated, observed annually on February 18th. Crab Stuffed Flounder Day. Nope, don't do that. Don't put non-foods into food. That would not be cool. And how about President's Day? Don't forget, it's President's Day. Used to be celebrated as George Washington's birthday, but they just made it a celebration of the presidents of these United States. And it's Thumb Appreciation Day. I mean, what would we do without our thumbs?
Be a cat.
We'd be a cat. We'd have claws, maybe. I don't know. And some things observed this week. National Engineers Week. It's Through with Chew Week. Yeah, it's a good time to get rid of the chew. It's also National Bird Feeding Month. It's National Blah Buster Month. Do you ever have a blah month? Well, it's time to bust out the blahs or bust them loose. It's National Canned Food Month and National Cat Health Month. Since Sandy already broke that, what would we do without thumbs? We'd be a cat. That's a quote from Sandy. And how about daily quotes for Monday, February the 18th? Positive quote of the day: letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means moving on. Yeah, I like that. That's a good quote. How about funny quote of the day? I got a perfect build for clothes. I'm a 28 dwarf. Wow, that's from Love and Death. Yeah, I'm a 28 dwarf. Wow. How about love quote of the day? This is from Paul Valery. This is something that we need to remember, and that is love is being stupid together. Yeah, that's good. You can do that when you're in love. So be stupid together. Don't get all stoic on us. How about verse of the day? This is taken from the Brit Hadashah portion of today's or this week's Torah portion. It's from Mark 9:7. It says, then a cloud formed, overshadowing them. With a voice came out of the cloud, and a voice came out of the cloud. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Yeah, I like that. Listen to him. And it is what happened on this day, February the 18th in history. Well, in 1678, you know what happened on this day in 1678? Well, Paul Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress is published in Holborn, London by Nathaniel Ponder. That's a really good book. I recommend it to everybody. Pilgrim's Progress, a classic. And also, we've got in 1885, Mark Twain, he publishes The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn in the U.S. That's another interesting book that has gone into history, and I think it's in most literature classes in high school. Also, 1908, it is the first postage stamp in rolls is issued. Yeah, 1908. That's when they first started coming out in rolls. Now we get them on that little page and we peel and stick. But there you go. Also, here we go. 1930. Remember the things about cows being milked on Airplanes Day? Well, this day in 1930, a cow was flown and milked, and the milk was sealed in paper containers and parachuted on this day in 1930. Also, this day in 1930, remember the planet they said is no longer a planet, but they said was a planet? Now it's a planet again. They're so schizophrenic about this. Well, Pluto. Yep. Pluto was discovered by Clyde W. Tombaugh, and he discovered the dwarf planet when sifting through photographs taken a month earlier. So there you go. That's the rest of the story. In 1977, the space shuttle takes off on its maiden flight. The Enterprise was mounted on a 747 shuttle carrier aircraft. It was the first free flight took place on the first free flight took place on August 12th, 1977. So this is when they stuck it on the back of the 747 and flew it around. So kind of a cool idea at the time. Quite a technological breakthrough. 1986, anti-smoking ad airs for the first time on TV. They never did that before 1986. And it featured who? Yul Brynner. And he died of smoking-induced lung cancer on the 10th of October, 1985. So I guess it was in memory of Yul Brynner. 2013, $50 million worth of diamonds were stolen in an armed robbery at Brussels airport in Belgium. Remember that? That was just a few years back. And I don't think any of those diamonds have been recovered. $50 million worth. And in 2016, yep, just 3 years ago, on this day, Pope Francis, know that guy? Yep, he questions U.S. presidential hopeful Donald Trump. Actually, let me say that again. He questions this guy, Pope Francis. Yes, Pope Francis questions U.S. presidential hopeful Donald Trump's Christianity over his call to build a wall on the Mexican border. Whoever thought that our salvation depended on whether or not we were going to build a wall or not? Famous birthdays today, 1933. Yoko Ono, also known as Mrs. John Lennon. She was born in Tokyo, Japan. In 1954, there's an actor. His name was John Travolta. First remembered in Grease. I think it was Grease. And there's that movie Staying Alive, Pulp Fiction, a number of others. He was born in Inglewood, New Jersey. So now we know. And then I did this one for you, JR. 1957, Vanna White, and her last name is Rosich or something like that. She was born in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hey, that's about your neck of the woods, isn't it? Woods there, huh? So I want to introduce my co-hosts. I'm joined today by James Meyers, also known as JR from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Good morning, JR.
Good morning, shalom.
It's good.
I have to admit, it was me that was messing up the show at the beginning. I had to be honest. I had the YouTube on in the background and had no clue.
Okay. Well, it takes a team. All right. So and then we also have Mr. Tom Collins joining us today.
Careful with that Mr. I'm nobody's master, but I joke about that when we look at the origin of Mr. But thank you, sir. It's a joy and an honor to be with you today. And JR, I don't know if you can bring your your volume up a little bit from my end. It's sounding rather faint again. We've had these challenges, folks, with the mics and sound and so forth. Such are the vagaries of cyberspace. And we're going to be talking about, you mentioned about a cloud earlier. we're going to be talking about an important cloud that's in the Torah in this portion. I'm excited about getting into that a bit. But anyway, I have to keep smiling because I had a miracle come up I might share with you that has helped Retta and I with her profound health problems from an 8-year-old boy. And you read in the scriptures that there was a king anointed when he was only 8 years old. I'll let you all do your homework, but he was apparently trained enough in the word and had counselors that he became a monarch among the Israelites when he was only 8 years old. Anyway, I'll just kind of whet your appetite for some of that. But
Okay. Wow. Oh, that's good. We're going to be looking forward to hearing that then. And but so let's kind of unwrap our brains a little bit and some points to ponder as we jumpstart our thought process today. Since today is the day of the political or of the sacred cows. We're good. I got sacred cows. It's going to be in our current event section as well. Sacred cows. You got to stick with us. So let's look at the humorous side here. How about some political cows? This is what communism says about cows. So think about everybody that wants to become a communist through the Nazi, or I'm sorry, the Democrat Socialist Party in Washington, D.C. Guess what? This is what happens when you go down that path. You have 2 cows. The government seizes both of them and then gives you some sour milk. That's what happens with communism. How about capitalism? You have 2 cows. You sell one and buy a bull. There you go. That's what capitalism thinks. British democracy says you have 2 cows, you feed them sheep's brains, and they go mad, and the government doesn't do anything. How about Nazism? You have 2 cows, the government shoots you and takes the cows. How about this? An American Democrat. You have 2 cows, your neighbor has none. You feel guilty for being successful. You vote people into office that put a tax on your cows, forcing you to sell one to raise money to pay the tax. The people you voted for then take the tax money, buy a cow, and give it to your neighbor. You feel righteous, and Barbara Streisand sings for you. There you go. How about an American Republican? Their thoughts on cows. You have 2 cows. Your neighbor has none. So? Okay. How about a socialist view of cows? You have 2 cows. The government takes one and gives it to your neighbor. You form a cooperative to tell him how to manage his cow. How about this? Democracy American style. You have 2 cows. The government taxes you to the point you have to sell both to support a man in a foreign country who has only 1 cow, which was a gift from your government. How about American-style bureaucracy? You have 2 cows. The government takes them both, shoots one, milks the other, pays you for the milk, and then pours the milk down the drain. Oh, democracy American style? The government promises to give you 2 cows if you vote for it. After the election, the president is impeached for speculating in cow futures. The press dubs the affair Cowgate. How about feudalism? You have 2 cows. Your lord takes some of the milk. And then pure socialism. This is pure socialism. You have 2 cows. The government takes them and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. You have to take care of all the cows, and the government gives you as much milk as you need. Pure socialism. That's pure socialism. You probably wouldn't get as much as you need there. They'd probably pour some down the drain too. And then bureaucratic socialism. You have 2 cows. The government takes them, puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. They are cared for by ex-chicken farmers. You have to take care of the chickens the government took from the chicken farmers. And then the government gives you as much milk, as many eggs as the regulations say you should need. And as many eggs as the regulations. Oh, there you go. And then fascism. You have 2 cows. The government takes both, hires you to care for them, and sells you the milk. There you go. Oh, pure communism. You have 2 cows. Your neighbors help you take care of them. and you all share the milk.
That's not true.
Pure Russian communism. You have 2 cows. You have to take care of them, but the government takes all the milk. And dictatorship. You have 2 cows. The government takes both and shoots you. I thought this was very interesting. So all of you listeners from Singapore, this is Singaporean democracy. You might understand this better than I do, but I can maybe catch this. You have 2 cows. The government fines you for keeping 2 unlicensed farm animals in your apartment. Okay. Militarianism. You have 2 cows. The government takes both and drafts you. So there you go. I got to say this about anarchy. You have 2 cows. Either you sell the milk at a fair price or your neighbors try to kill you and take the cows. And there's some other ones. I don't know if we've got time to do this. I like the counterculture one. Wow, dude, there's like these 2 cows, man. You've got to have some of this milk. Yeah, counterculture. And surrealism, you have 2 giraffes. The government requires you to take harmonica lessons. There you go. I think it's time to jump forward into the Brit Hadashah. I've got some others that are in there that are really kind of funny. Maybe we'll catch those a little bit later. Oh, can I say this? Oh, environmentalism, you have 2 cows. The government bans you from milking or killing them. And feminism, you have 2 cows. They get married and adopt a veal calf. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the Brit Hadashah or the Torah portion this morning. Did y'all like that? I mean, since we're talking about cows today, sacred cows. Tom, you got
unholy cows. George Orwell wrote a piece called Animal Farm about all these animals that were instructed that they all were going to be exactly the same and equal. But the upside of it is in the back of the barn, up in the shadows, they finally discovered it says that all animals are not equal. Some are more equal than others.
That's right. And as Robin would say, holy cow, Batman. Sorry, I had to throw it in too. Okay, moving forward. Now that we've unwrapped our brains and we've lightened the load a little bit. I got Sandy. Sandy's in the background with me today, and she's just not with me on the mic, but she's like, yeah, because our mic's not working quite right. But anyway, James or Tom, what do we got for us today?
I think I was the Brit Hadashah, wasn't I, or was I wrong?
Well, you know what? Maybe I just typed it in wrong. James. Okay.
No, maybe I did it wrong. I don't know. What did you prepare for, Tom?
You've got the either Haftorah or the Brit Hadashah.
Okay.
What I'm looking here in the.
Okay, that's what I was wanting to make sure. I didn't want to steal your thunder.
Okay. All right, James. Then what do you got for it?
All right. So I'm going to go over the Brit Hadashah today. We'll touch a little bit on the Haftorah. I'm trying to find the verse real quick so I can. All right. So it's Mark. The Brit Hadashah is Mark 9, 1 through 10. And this is the transfiguration where Yeshua takes his disciples and they go up on, I want to say it's Mount Hermon. Some people have named it some other places, but I truly believe it's Mount Hermon. And basically they go up there and Yeshua ends up meeting with Elijah and Moses. It's really kind of it ties in really good with our Torah portion today, because we see that as Moses is speaking to Yahweh, he's basically, his face is glowing because of the radiance or the manifest presence of Yahweh is just radiating off of him. And we see that this exact same thing happens to Yeshua. It says, and his garments became glistening, exceeding white, so that no fuller, or so that no fuller, it says no bleach on the earth can whiten them like this did. Matthew speaks and says, and he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his garments became white as light. And then in Luke 9:29, and as he was praying, the fashion of his continuance was altered, and his raiment became white and dazzling. And the transfiguration, basically this transformation took place, and suddenly a very bright light penetrated through the body of Yeshua, lighting up and whitening his clothes. What they saw was indeed the glory of the Son of Man. And what basically what they were seeing was the coming King and what it would be like when he was the light of the world. There will no longer be moon. There will no longer be need for the sun, because our Messiah will be the light of the world. And the awesome thing about this Torah portion, and I'm not going to get into it much, but we see that Yahweh is preparing his children for his presence to dwell with them, which is an awesome thing, because he is preparing them at this point, just like we're being prepared today, that Yahweh is going to dwell with his children, and he's going to dwell eventually forever, and he's going to tabernacle among us. Now, interesting to point out here is that we said that Yeshua was speaking to Moses and Elijah, and anytime that you see Yahweh, the Father speaking, there's always a cloud. There's always something covering his glory. Even at Mount Sinai, what happens? A cloud covers the mountain, and Yahweh speaks. And it's because no man can see Yahweh and live. So this, even with, if you look at the incense, it's in the tabernacle. There was something always covering it, because we cannot look upon Yahweh. But what's interesting is Moses and Elijah. What is up with these two? Well, Elijah never died. He never saw death. Okay. So we also see that Yeshua says here that there are going to be those who will not see death. And he actually speaks to his disciples and tells them that. Well, Moses did see death. Okay. So you've got the two. This is a prophetic picture of those who will be raised up in the last days, who will not die. And it says that basically the dead will rise first and those living will come up after. But this was a prophetic picture. Also, it's a picture of basically the Torah and the prophets, the law and the prophets. Moses is a picture of the law, and Elijah as the prophets. It was really interesting, though, that I see also that the disciples, it seems like every time something big's going on, they go to sleep. When they're in basically the Garden of Gethsemane, and Yeshua's like, hey, pray with me. And they just keep falling asleep. Well, all of a sudden they wake up, and Peter's like, hey, he sees Moses and Elijah. And he's like, should I build you guys a tabernacle? And he wants to make them a sukkot. And here's the thing, it's not Feast of Tabernacles at this time, or they would be in Jerusalem. So what is he doing? And I really kind of was digging deep into this, and what I truly believe is that he was so in awe of what was going on at that moment. He was seeing a picture of the future, seeing a picture of what the kingdom was going to be like. And he didn't want it to end. So he's like, hey, if I can build you guys a sukkot and we can stay here, let's do it. Also, I think it's a picture of the fact that, Feast of Tabernacles is going to be, he was seeing that radiant, he was seeing that prophetic picture of what it's going to be like when he tabernacles among us fully in his glory. He also was in real quick, and I'm kind of babbling, but Yeshua tells his disciples that some of them will not see death. And he kind of gives them this verse as he starts off. And it really kind of, I'm sure they're thinking, what the heck is he talking about? Because he says, hold on, it says right here, it says, just prior to the experience, Yeshua promised his disciples that some would not die until they saw the glory of his in the kingdom. In Matthew 16:28, the promise Yeshua made that some of them that stand here would not die until they saw the glory of the Son of Man coming in the kingdom. And this basically was not fulfilled. And some were going on. But so I truly believe that at this point, he's so confused. He just woke up. He's thinking, is it coming? Is this the point where he's going to save us? They didn't have the full revelation that Yeshua was going to give up his life. And that's why he goes on to tell them that I'm going to give up my life and I'm going to be raised. But this really points to, I truly believe, the future of what it's going to be like to have Messiah Yeshua here in his radiance and in his glory, and have God dwelling among us.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Tom, what are your thoughts on that? Oh, you're muted there, Tom.
I opposite. The characterization of what happened with Nicodemus when he encountered Yeshua in John 3 is profoundly speaking to this, when he knows that those that are begotten from above and are born of the Spirit, he's just like the wind. The wind lists, the wind goes. You don't know from whence it comes and whence it goes. When he was resurrected in spirit, he really walked through walls and said, may nothing be missing or broken in your life. He spoke Shalom Aleichem to the brethren, and they were terrified at that encounter, like we read about the situation here on the Transfiguration event. And over in 1 John, I'll just paraphrase 1 John 3. It says, behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the children of Elohim. And he goes on to say, but it does not appear what we shall be, but when he shall appear, his second coming, his advent, coming out of the clouds, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And there's a description of his kavod, his glory, in this account in the Transfiguration, and it's spoken over in Revelation, the 1st chapter, when John falls down like a dead man, when he sees this stupendous kavod, this glorification of the Messiah, with his feet like brass burning in a furnace, his hair white as wool, his eyes like flames of fire, his face shining like the sun in full strength, in such a glorified state. And you need to consider, folks, that have looked at how Yahweh calls the things as if they already were in Romans 4:17, because clearly Paul talks about what he's doing in the lives of his saints, his believers, whom he has justified. That's by the blood of the Lamb. He has sanctified. He's set us apart. The set apart ones through obedience to his holy eternal law, and whom he has glorified. It's already in the mind of the Creator, as I understand it, a done deal of where we're going when we're on the track to follow the Lamb, wherever he may lead us. And so we have this, no pun intended, glorious future is pictured here in this Transfiguration, which will go right back to the miracle that happened with Moses' countenance when he came down from the mountain.
Yeah, I think about that too. I mean, they couldn't even look at Moses' face because of that, how transformed he was. So I'm thinking about how that was with Yeshua. But think about this. What do you think was going through the minds of these disciples when they've been well-versed? They were raised in the Torah. How many Torah portions had they been through in their life? I mean, to where they knew Exodus 19. They knew when the people were gathered to the mountain and the cloud came down on the mountain. They understood the significance of this, or maybe they didn't quite understand it. They're up there with Yeshua, and it was while they were up there, then the cloud comes down. Maybe that's when it struck them. But when the voice came out of the cloud, I mean, think about the correlation. The voice that came out of the cloud, this is my beloved son. Listen to him. Listen to him. Just like they were told in Exodus 19 and 20, the voice of God coming out of the cloud for all the people to hear. And what was their response? Oh, Moses, we don't want to hear anymore. You just tell us what he's saying. And Moses got that. Got the honor to hear the voice of Yah. And yet James 4:12 tells us that it is Yeshua who is the lawgiver. And now the voice from heaven says Yeshua is there. He's the one who is giving us his Torah. He's giving you the instructions. Don't shun anything that he's saying, because he's the one. Guys, I was just thinking about this because this conversation Sandy and I were having, I think even yesterday, and we've had it before in the past, how many people have come into the Hebraic roots of their faith, and how in their pursuit and the desire for the knowledge have ended up walking away from Yeshua. And they stopped listening to his voice. They stopped listening to the one who was we have all of these evidences of these witnesses that were with Yeshua, how the divine presence of God endorsed him. This is the one you've been looking for. And yet they'll turn away listening to the apologetics of the anti-missionaries saying, Yeshua's not the Messiah. We got to wait for the Messiah. Where is Yeshua? He's not with us anymore. And there's so many things that they try to convince them no longer to remember, or they cause them to begin to deny the very divinity of Yeshua the Messiah. And even in this story right here, it is the correlations are too strong, saying, look, this is a holy place because my son is here. The cloud is here. The witnesses are here. And I'm telling you, it's the same type of thing that happened back in Exodus. It's the same type of thing that when Moses came down from the mountain, that Yeshua is transfigured with the brightness of the glory like Moses did. I mean, look at the correlations and all the parallels that are together with it. How, and we want to doubt. We want to say, well, he can't be. What lies from the pit of Sheol, of hell, that have been spewed forth, that people would grasp onto, to listen to a deceiving spirit, to take our eyes off of Yeshua, the whole purpose, the whole anchor of our faith. James, want to wrap it up for us?
Yes. Another interesting thing that I was going to say is that if you look, we now had seen that they had heard the Torah given from Moses. They had heard the prophets had basically, they had given their message. And now it's time to listen to my son. He had come to basically, he was the one that we were now to listen to. Not that the other two had become insignificant. It's that he was revealing the part of his end time plan. Another interesting fact is in Peter 2 Peter 1:16-18. For we did not know cunningly devised fables when we made known unto you the power, the coming of the Lord, Yeshua HaMashiach, but we were eyewitnesses of the majesty. For he received from Elohim the Father honor and glory when there was born such a voice to him by the majestic glory. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And this voice we ourselves heard, born out of heaven, when we were with him in the Holy Mount. When Peter basically reflected on this experience, he pointed out that to him, it was an anticipation of the future, the power of the coming Yeshua Messiah, the coming Messiah and his kingdom. We see that at this point, the disciples and all the people in this generation were expecting to have this Messiah was going to come and he was just going to conquer. And he was just going to basically, they didn't understand that he was going to come, and he was going to come as a priest first. And he was going to basically fix the sin issue. And then he was going to come back as a conquering king. But, they were seeing this glory. The way that man was made, when we were made to dwell with our Father, that's what the whole point was, is that we were supposed to see this radiance that they got to see. And there's 3 people in the last 2,000 years who got to see this glory, yet it was supposed to be here the whole time. But that sin issue is what has basically gotten in the way. So he had to come to fix that so that we could eventually have the kingdom that he established for us. But that's about all I got. But it was a good portion.
Excellent.
Wow, that's
excellent.
all you got. That's a lot, brother.
Yeah, it's really good Brit Hadashah portion there. And thank you,
Can I
James.
make a quick commentary? We keep talking about the cloud, not to be flippant about the internet, but this is all coming to you folks through the cloud of the internet. I don't think there's any coincidence with that being a manifestation fulfillment. And we need, of course, pray that what we say is becoming the household of Elohim, which we are now spiritually, that let our words be few, as it says in Ecclesiastes. But if it's the words that come from his word by the Spirit, then I think we can be free to speak forth to and bless you out of this cloud that we're in on the internet.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey, let's talk about some more sacred cows, okay? Well, we were talking about cows earlier. Now we have the the cloud where Moses comes and the Torah portion comes down out of the mountain to find a sacred cow. But let's talk about the sacred cows of media. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna preface this. I got this article from newswars.com, and it's the title of this article. It's going to be more of a launching point for us, but it says "Spreading the Fake Smollett MAGA Country Hate Crime: A Mainstream Media Montage." So I say it like that, and this was an article I guess they pulled over from Zero Hedge, and so very, very, very interesting. Let me just start it out this way. First off, do y'all know who this what's his name? What's his full name? I got to find it real quick. We'll come across it.
Was it the actor you're talking about?
Yeah, the actor. I'm trying to think what his full name is. It's buried in the article somewhere. But nevertheless, Smollett's his last name, I think. Yeah, Smollett's his last name. And so the article is this. And if you don't know what's going on, the guy Blaine said that he was attacked by MAGA wearing hats, two guys wearing MAGA wearing hats that called him, I guess, homophobic type of names, and I mean disparaging names, all this type of things, and then in that they put a noose around his neck and threw some type of chemicals on it, and it was all the outrage and all of the media. Well, come to find out, this thing is really breaking through that narrative over the weekend that's not what happened, and so. There's some clips related to this in this article, and it says, "Watch yet another avalanche of fake mainstream media viral coverage." And it says, when, dear mainstream media, will you ever learn to get off the same old script, like actually including some skepticism of unverified claims, as one might be so bold as to expect a professional, objective, unbiased journalist? Is it too much to ask CNN to bring an ounce of critical evidence to claims, especially on highly socially divisive topics such as heinous hate crimes, instead of closing their eyes and parroting whatever is the storyline du jour merely because of political convenient narratives? How many embarrassing retractions, walkbacks, corrections, and deleted articles will it take? Watch yet another avalanche of fake mainstream media viral coverage. A montage of mainstream media spreading fake news that hashtag Jussie Smollett was attacked by white men in MAGA hats. That was from Mark Dice. He said, and then also it says, instead, we once again see CNN and virtually all other left-leaning mainstream media outlets spreading legitimately fake news like wildfire merely because of a given narrative is politically and ideologically inconvenient to their corporate owners because, MAGA, M-A-G-A, Make America Great Again. The merely mention of white men in MAGA hats immediately crushes the mainstream's ability for critical analysis, as many recent instances of embarrassing media mega culpas prove. That is, in other words, they've had to backtrack and say, we were wrong. And they are becoming too many to count of late. As it now turns out, Donald Trump Jr. is correct in pointing out that it appears that Jussie Smollett, by the way, he's an actor in Empire. It's a HBO TV series, and he's homosexual. And so this is where the whole narrative kind of builds upon. It says, he tried to manufacture a hate crime to make Trump supporters look bad, and most of the media not only uncritically accepted his lies as facts for weeks, but attacked those who questioned the validity of his false story. As Fox News' Brian Flood also remarks, CNN is all in on the Jussie Smollett news, but they kept forgetting the part where he claimed attackers are Trump supporters. I wonder why CNN keeps forgetting the Trump supporters part. They really loved that part when the story first broke. and that was Donald Trump Jr. Indeed, see for yourself, CNN initially wall-to-wall reporting of the now confirmed fake "This is MAGA country," supposedly racial and homophobic attack. There we go. There's the words for it. So basically, the bottom line is mainstream media is latching on to anything and everything that they possibly can to discredit President Trump and Trump supporters, and they try to latch and call it racist, homophobic. They try to blaspheme basically anybody that wants to make this country great again. In fact, if you remember what Governor Cuomo says, this nation's never been great. And I mean, things like that. Even Joe Biden went to Europe and said how horrible the United States is right now. I mean, they're actually there. This is a narrative that continues to go forth. But I want to ask you the question: why does this narrative continue to go forth? This narrative goes forth based on the sacred cows that the media can say no wrong. And so we find out that the sacred cow is always wrong. And because they'll continue the narrative. In fact, for 2 years, they've had the narrative, and this drumbeat is, according to this article, the beginning of the end of the Trump's presidency, or this is the tipping point, or the walls are closing in, and Trump's going down, and he will never, or he'll not serve out his term. I mean, those are some of the best compilations. And so, yeah, we break the power of those curses in the name of Yeshua. So nevertheless, these type of things continue to go on because there's a narrative. But why do we have the narrative? Why do we have this sacred cow that's being spoken? My thought is this, because I listened to an interview by or with Yuri Bezmenov. And you can go back and find it on YouTube. And he was a Soviet propagandist who defected to the United States. And in 1985, he was interviewed. And he said one of the first steps that the communists will do, and this is really from the Communist World Society, this is the things that they've been pushing. One of the first things they do is demoralize a nation. And they begin with the education system so they can change. It takes 15 to 20 years to do. And because that's how long it takes to raise up a generation of students to actually brainwash them to think differently than the culture that they are part of. Well, I think in 1985, he said that demoralization process was complete. He says he could never thought it could have been done as well as it had. That was in 1985. We're how many years later after that? 25, almost 30 years past that. And the demoralization continues to go on in the narrative. He says the next step is to bring about a crisis. I think the narrative with that's been going on is to create such hate against anybody that would be a Trump supporter or wearing a MAGA hat. Anything and everything gets the headlines. But what happens is they find out these narratives are false. And that's what's happened with Jussie Smollett is he's now facing prison term for making a false report and lying to the police. And yet I went through and I looked at articles, and I just did a DuckDuckGo search about attacks on Trump supporters wearing MAGA hats. Do you realize how many attacks there have been on people wearing the MAGA hats? But there's been nothing that's been proved that anybody wearing a MAGA hat has been legitimate against race, somebody of an opposite race, or those with gender confusion or anything like that. But there's been lots of attacks. Why? Because of a narrative that people are angry about anybody wearing a MAGA hat. So they're attacking them. So where's the disparity? Well, and what's the issue? It's because we have the sacred cow of media that how can the media ever say anything wrong? And then they really never backtrack on their errors. They just kind of like, well, next story, please. And they just move on. So let's talk about this. And what do y'all think about this? Maybe the Jussie Smollett story that's been going on, or any of these other attacks upon that have been perpetuated because of the media's false narrative.
Wow, wow, wow. And I look at what Messiah said will be happening in this very age. In the account, for example, in Luke 17, when his disciples are being warned about prior to his second coming, they're going to say, look, he's over here, he's over there. And he says, do not buy that. Don't follow or run after them. But then you get down in Luke 17 in verse 28. It's already talking about Noah just prior to that, with the kind of violence that happened during the time of Noah. And it says, verse 28, Yeshua says it will be the same as it was in the days of Lot. People went on eating and drinking and buying and selling and planting and building. But on the day Lot left Sodom, and by the way, if you do a study of Sodom, it wasn't just sexual perversion, bad and horrible that is, to twist people's sexual identities right down to questioning little children. Do you really feel like a girl rather than a boy? And all that horror. It's an abomination in the eyes of Yahweh. But on the day Lot left Sodom, fire and sulfur, brimstone rained from heaven and destroyed them all. It will be like that on the day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, and it talks about a person being on the housetop, not come down. You get down to 32, and it's a very sobering statement. Remember Lot's wife. She looked back in favor or longing for that corrupt, horribly corrupt, sexual perverse and judicially perverse, where you better not even have a shoelace, from what some of the sages say about that region of those multiple cities down near the sea. It's the Dead Sea, actually. It's a potash works today under the Israelite government. And there are pictures now that on the internet show that there's probably outlines of buildings that were crystallized by tremendous heat, is recounted there, and what happened to that region in Sodom and Gomorrah. And I've burnt brimstone, and I've seen it burn a hole in pavement. It's so amazing as a material. But that being said, he says that on that very night, two will be in one bed, one will be taken, everybody left. Two women will be grinding grain, one will be taken and left. For two will be in the field, one will be taken, and the other will be left. And he says, where, master? And they said, where the corpse is, there's also the eagles or vultures will be gathered. We're going to be gathered up as eagles in the clouds with Messiah at his second coming. But he's saying this is the trigger point when you have this. Now it's global in its phenomenon of this sexual twisting of people's persona, their identity, and indeed the kind of judicial injustice where people, as you read in Isaiah, that make them sin for just a word if they don't say it just right in court. I know, because I've been there and doing paralegal work on up to the level of trying to protect pastors from the IRS. That's what we're in, judicial tyranny and sexual perversion, exactly as the Messiah said will be the backdrop prior to his second coming.
Yeah, that's good, Tom. You know, it just made me think about something about how when you said that, isn't it true that at the time of Moses, when the people, they didn't know what happened to Moses, so they needed a different leader. They needed to listen to somebody, and anybody would be good enough. I mean, that's the reason why they came up with a golden calf. And I was just kind of thinking about how all that really relates. They really want to be led by something that they want to make it. They want to believe something. They want to believe that something is true. And yet, I don't know, a lot of people that are listening to this say, you know, we get it. We see all the lies and the falsehoods. But even still, I've seen comments from those in the Hebrew roots world that believe a lot of these narratives that continue to be proven false. So, James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the fake news and the lies, it's really crazy, because I think this deception has been going on for so long, but we're in a time where truth is being revealed. Yahweh is actually shedding a light on the darkness, and it's being exposed. And I truly believe that's why we are starting to see what's going on. But this stuff has been going on for basically since the beginning of creation, since Babylon. But also something that I thought was interesting was that, like, it's not interesting. It's actually really sad, but there are a lot of believers today who think abortion is actually an okay thing. And they've been duped into this media thing and these politicians that have basically convinced them that a baby is not and then the womb is not a baby. And to kill somebody, this is what, like, when I was in the military, the one thing that I learned was that if you're going to fight somebody, if you have to take somebody's life, you have to almost make it to where that person is not a human being in your own mind. You have to basically make it to that person is so evil, or they're so evil that you have to do that to convince yourself. Well, it's the same thing they've done with this, is they have to convince you that that's not a child in the womb. And I truly believe that we are called, it's Ephesians, I think, where it says that we are called to expose them, to expose the darkness. And I think abortion has become this generation's slavery. And we have sat back and we have become so silent with our heads stuck in the sand that it's time that we actually get up and speak out. And that we start exposing this darkness for what it is. And, we can't just count on a president. We can't just count on our leaders to do it anymore. We have every thing at our fingertips, social media. We've got, we're on this radio station. There's so many things out there that we can do, that even if it's just picking up a sign and holding it outside of an abortion clinic, you have a voice, and it's time that we start using it.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? And one of the things about the voice that we have here for those that are listening and watching is to take programs like this and news reports that are actually spreading the truth, and then to repost those and post those on your social media, post those in different places where people will watch them and maybe catch an idea. Now, so Yuri Bezhenov said, he said that some people are so brainwashed in the system that they would rather that even if you took them to the old Soviet gulags, to the old Soviet concentration camps, that they would not believe it. And they would not believe it until the point that the jackboot soldiers came and crushed, and I'm going to say it in a nice way, their private part, and then they would finally get a clue. I mean, this is one of the things that is, because that's the strength of the brainwashing. But I'm going to say this. Isn't it true that at one point in time, we didn't believe in Yeshua, but there was something that took place in our lives and the veil was removed and we saw the light. We saw that truth shine through. And why did that take place? Because it was the move of truth of God. Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life. He poured out on us, and in his mercy, we repented. In his mercy, we got that gift of repentance, and we saw, and our eyes could see. And we need to speak the truth and pray as the truth goes forth, that the Holy Spirit does a work. I mean, that's the only way that I really see that it can be a complete and true work. People need to be hungry for the truth, but if people aren't hungry, how can you feed them? But the Holy Spirit can create a hunger. I was thinking about this too. Okay, we got to be ready in season and out of season to give a reason for why we believe. And let our conversations be seasoned with salt, so we know how to answer everyone. So there you go. Well, hey, let's jump forward and let's go on to the Torah portion. Then I guess, Tom, you've got the Torah portion. And you're muted there, Tom.
Excuse me, I just reversed it. There's so much in this portion, but I was strongly led over to what seems to be such a discussion here about sacred cows. And in the world of our New Covenant brethren in Christianity, there is a sacred cow that they have, a doctrine that they have to cleave to besides that cow, and that is that the Torah is done away, and it was bondage. And that's a satanic nightmare, in my understanding, from almost 50 years of studying his word. So when you fast forward over in the span of the portion, starting in Exodus 30:11 to 34:35, but in Exodus 34, it talks about the point in verse 29 where Moshe descended from Mount Sinai, been up there for 40 days up in the cloud, being a stenographer. Moses, not to be flippant, take a letter, and he was to stay up there in the presence of the Almighty. With 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands, as he descended the mountain, he did not realize that the skin on his face shone as a result of his speaking with Yahweh. And when Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, the skin of his face shone. They were afraid to come near him. It was just like you read back in what you were going through, JR, with the Transfiguration, when they were so dismayed about what they were seeing. They were afraid to come near him, but Moses called out to them. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community returned to him, and Moses spoke to them. And afterwards, all the Israelites came near, and he commanded them to do everything that Yahweh had told them on Mount Sinai. Now, what he told them there is just as applicable then as it is today. And here's this sacred cow that the mainstream Christian teachers, sadly, so terribly erroneously teach that the Torah is done away with. But when you go over to 2 Corinthians 3, when it talks about how the letter, when it's supplied, and I've seen people try to just have the letter of the law without the spirit in it, and it can be a killing machine. It can be oppressive. When ministers are supposed to be not having dominion over our faith, but helpers of our joy to strengthen us. But when we read here in verse 7 of 2 Corinthians 3, now if the ministry of death chiseled in letters on stones came with glory, with a kavod, so the Israelites were not able to look directly at Moses' face, just like we read here in the Torah, because of the glory from his face, a fading glory. Now, here's where they get into their sacred cow. You see, the law is fading away. No, it's not. If you do a proper, respectful, careful reading, line upon line, precept upon precept, look directly at Moses' face because of the glory from his face, a fading glory, how will the ministry of the Spirit, of the Ruach, not be more glorious? For if the ministry of condemnation had glory, the ministry of righteousness overflows with the more glory. In fact, what had been glorious is not glorious now by comparison because of the glory that surpasses it. For if what was fading away was glorious, what endures will be even more glorious, and I submit to you eternal. Therefore, having such a hope, we use great boldness. We are not like Moses, who used to put a veil over his face so the Israelites could not stare at the end of what was fading away. Remember, Yeshua said, let your light so shine before men that they'll see your good mitzvot, your works, and they will glorify your Father in heaven. And going on here, it says, having such a hope, verse 12 of 2 Corinthians 3, we use great boldness, just what you're referring to, JR. We are not like Moses, who used to put a veil over his face so the Israelites could not stare at the end of what was fading away. Here's the sacred cow again. See, the end of it, the law was being done away, was fading away. But their minds were closed. For to this day, at the reading of the old or the original covenant, the same veil remains. It is not lifted because it is set aside. This is not the Torah. This is the veil. It says it was set aside, folks. Excuse me for getting a little bit energetic here, but this is such a sacred cow that's so horribly evil and wrong. But it's set aside only in the Messiah. Even to this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. But whenever a person turns to Yahweh, the veil, not the law, the veil, not the Torah, the veil is removed. And now Yahweh is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of Yahweh is, there is freedom or liberty. We all with unveiled faces are looking as in a mirror. Remember, Paul says that he saw in a mirror dimly, but he's looking forward to knowing as now he is known by the Messiah when he is changed to spirit, resurrected from the dead. With unveiled faces, we're looking as in a mirror at the glory of Yahweh and are being transformed into the same image from kavod to kavod, from glory to glory, that is from Yahweh, who is the Spirit.
Yeah, that's good, Tom. You know, I was just thinking about that. That really reflects the same type of thing that James is talking about looking into the mirror. And I'm going to go over to that real quickly, and then let's hear what you have to say. And it says in James chapter 1, it says, for if anyone is a hearer of the word, not a doer, he's like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. For once he has looked at himself and has gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was. But one who looks intently at the perfect Torah, the Torah of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer, this man shall be blessed in what he does. That's the veil that's removed, which was removed in Messiah so that we can actually understand the Torah. Well, that's how we understand ourselves. That's what we walk in. That was a really good point. I really, really like that. James, what are your thoughts?
Well, the one thing too that I thought was neat that kind of tied this together was that we see that this worshiping of this golden calf actually brought about a breaking of a covenant. The covenant was made in Exodus 19, what is it, 19 through 24. And we see that when the Israelites basically, when they worshiped this golden calf, and what I truly believe was Yahweh said he was going to basically send his angel before them. And he told them that he was going to send them before them. And Moses leaves. And up until this point, Moses had been gone, a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 days at that point. Then he's gone for 40. And they make this golden calf and they say, let us send him before us, or that he may go before us or whatever. But, they basically promised that they would not worship any other gods and they would not break the covenant. Well, they do. And something interesting that I just saw last night was that if you look back in Exodus 19 through 24, they actually are wearing fine gold. They're dressed in nice clothes. And Yahweh tells them, he says, take off your jewelry. And this is basically take off all the stuff they used to make the golden calf, but also take off this fine dress that you had basically when we made that covenant. And he tells them to take it off. And that's a picture of them saying this covenant's been broken. Plus, along with the commandments or the stones being broken. But also, like I was saying at Mount Horeb, I truly believe that that's where this transfiguration happened with Yeshua. So it's showing that new covenant coming back together through our Messiah. But it's really just cool to see how this all ties together. And it's so important that we understand this, because I was reading a Facebook post. This guy got on yesterday and he says, just want everybody to know I denounce Jesus or Yeshua. And this guy was a Hebrew roots or a Messianic believer. And I've seen him post a lot of good things. And he literally just denounced Yeshua yesterday. And I was like, how is this happening? And it's because people, they want to know the secrets. They want to know the mysteries. They don't want to know the basics. It's this stuff here, the basic truths that we can show that prove without a shadow of a doubt that the Messiah, Yeshua, is Mashiach, and he is Yahweh in the flesh, and he has come to renew a covenant. But it's good to know this stuff so that we can help those brothers and sisters who are falling away.
Oh, that's disheartening when someone would try to deny Yeshua, because the purpose is not about the knowledge, and that's where I think people want to know the truth. I think we've been lied to for so many years, and but the problem is I want to know Yeshua, and then so therefore when I'm wanting to know Yeshua, then my whole study, everything that I do when I'm looking at the word, I'm looking for Yeshua in the word. And the only thing that I can think of why people would go down the wrong path, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is because they're not looking for Yeshua. They're looking for knowledge. They've made a different God, a golden calf of knowledge, and not Yeshua. And again, what a time that the tablets would need to be broken again, showing the hardness and the stoniness of our hearts and how much we need to be converted. Yeah, good stuff. Well, hey, we've run out the clock, and I want to say thank you very much, Tom and James, for your contributions today and your study and your preparation and putting these things together and your input. Thank you so much for being my co-hosts here on Let Us Reason Together. And pray for Sandy. She's feeling a little under the weather today. So please do that. I want to remind everybody tomorrow's version of Let Us Reason Together is called The Chameleon Church on Tuesday, same time as this. And it's led by Alan Aguirre, co-hosted by Jamie Louie, Tom Collins, and Rabbi Daryl Weinberg. So I want to encourage y'all to stay tuned here for that and all the other great programming on the Lamb Network. And so, well, on behalf of the Lamb Network and Let Us Reason Together, thank you, James and Tom, for being part today. And until next time, shalom.